Welcome to the Texas Truck Podcast. I'm Craig.
And I'm Brian.
And boy, we've got a good one for you today. It's been a minute.
Several
minutes. We've been
Months.
super busy. Good news is we've driven all kinds of stuff in between the last podcast.
I think it was October of 22.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute, yeah.
We've
driven everything since then.
But if you've been on our YouTube channel, you know that we've been put a lot of videos out, so been a lot of focus on that. Enough of that, though. We had a chance to go to a Mazda CX-90 launch event, and we got to talk to one of our heroes,
Dave Coleman, the legend.
The legend himself, Dave Coleman with Mazda.
Mr. Miata.
Mr. Miata.
Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. I want to drive everything as hard as I can.
Gosh.
We found out some interesting things. Before we get into that, though, let's just, we'll turn it over to the interview with him. We got to do with him on the site there with the Mazda CX-90 launch event, and we'll talk more about that on the other side. So enjoy your time with Dave Coleman, and
See you on the other side.
see you on the other side. Whenever you're ready. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. You want to go on first?
That's what I'm going to do.
So camera's over there, but I'm talking to you.
You do whatever you want.
All right.
It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
I'd rather talk to you.
Is my makeup good? Hair good? Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
Okay.
All right. So first question, really hard. You're already changing it.
I am going to change it.
Yeah.
Well,
Keep it
I
done.
thought it was going to be easy, but
Amateurs. Amateurs. It's hard. Well, if we do use the clip, I want to have the abstract right here.
Right.
you ready now?
Yes.
Okay. Our producer says we're good.
All right.
All right. So, so first off, hardball question.
Yeah.
You are definitely a car guy.
Obviously. Yeah.
From what we can tell and a little bit we've heard from you before. What's your favorite track?
Sonoma, which you drove right past on the way here, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I race in 24 Hours of Lemons.
Oh, really?
We've historically run twice a year there, and it's so vertical.
Yeah.
Right? So every corner is different blind crest, changing camber. It's a really, really technical track.
Yeah.
It really flows beautifully. And when you're not racing, you're in Sonoma.
Right. There's that.
So,
right. Yeah.
Like most tracks are just in terrible locations, and to have it be in this beautiful high rent area.
Right. Yeah. We have
amazing.
Texas Motor Speedway, and it's pretty boring compared to that what we just drove by.
Right. Right.
Okay. So is that the one you've driven the most?
No, probably not. I mean, I've driven all the California tracks quite a lot at this
Okay.
point because I've been. I think we've done 68 Lemons races, and I've did other racing before that, and a lot of rally driving before that. So, all up and down California, pretty much covered them all. But yeah, we do Thunderhill, Laguna Seca, Sonoma, Buttonwillow, all of them.
So the Lemons rule is the $500 and less, right?
Yeah.
What did you? Yeah. Right. $500 and less. Right. What did you run in the last Lemons run?
We've run the same car for all those 68 races,
Really?
and it's an NA Miata with a 1.6 liter and a turbo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we just found two. We'd done a totaled body, and the guy had taken all of his good mechanical stuff out and put it in another good body that had a bad 3-cylinder engine and an automatic.
Okay.
And we took this pile of junk and assembled it back and started gathering parts, and we legitimately built that car in its initial state, which was turbocharged, for like $496.
Wow. Right under. Yeah.
We accounted for everything down to the valve grinding compound that we used to rebuild the head ourselves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did you use for engine management on that?
A totally obsolete box called a BIPES, which I don't even remember. That's an acronym for something. I don't remember what. But it's a little magic box with little dip switches that you flip to tune it differently to retard the ignition timing, right? And then a rising rate fuel pressure regulator.
Oh, wow.
So stuff that was 20 years obsolete by the time we got it, so it was really easy to pick up for free.
Nice.
For very cheap.
For free. Right.
No, I think the BIPES cost us $40, and the rising rate regulator was $20. Nobody wanted that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Genius. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you get annoyed when people don't understand driving dynamics?
Well, if I got annoyed by that, I'd be annoyed all the time.
Okay.
It's complicated.
Fair answer. That's a good answer. That's an honest answer. Okay, we'll get into a little bit more of the actual car now. That is why we're here. So we could go on all day. So we need to get to what we're here for. The origin of this chassis for the CX-90, it feels like it was originally, well, this is me completely speculating and guessing, with Brian and I talking. Was it originally intended for maybe a Mazda 6 or something else, and then it turned into CX-90, or was it always CX-90 from the ground up, or did the market change things?
The market definitely changed. This platform has been in development for a long time, and different ideas have been going on at various times. We would love to make a sedan on the
That's
thing.
what it seems like. That's what I was going to guess.
But the people aren't buying
Nobody's
it.
buying
Like the Mazda 6 was so good, and we kept thinking, well, maybe if we make it better, people will buy it. And the last version of the car was just amazing.
Yeah.
People just don't buy cars anymore. So well, let's make what they want. Yeah,
this is why we have Texas Truck Channel, because
right.
nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But y'all have done a lot of work on this powertrain with the Turbo 6 and the PHEV and the 8-speed transmission and all this.
Yeah.
Usually, most car companies don't do a lot of work for just one platform. How are we gonna see this in other platforms in Mazda or different models?
Yeah, at the moment, what is coming off of this is in Europe and Japan, there's a CX-60, which is a smaller version of this, shorter wheelbase and narrower.
Okay.
They're gonna get a CX-80 over there, which is the same length as this, but narrower. Fits in European and Japanese streets.
Right.
And then North America gets the wide versions.
Okay.
Right, so we'll get the CX-90, and a little bit later we'll get CX-70.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Good. So, and that's it for now, for the time being.
That's what we'll tell you
I know
about.
right. Okay. Right. No, that's fair. That's fair.
We can talk RX-9 later.
Right.
That's I didn't expect an announcement there, but okay. So one of the things we noticed in your video, your technical video y'all previewed for us, which was great, by the way, thank you, is you really talked about how the engine is mounted really far back, or placed as far back as y'all could.
Right.
Is this technically almost a mid-engine based on what it is on that axle? Is that a front mid maybe?
I think if you look at the PHEV, you could make that argument. It's the wheels are kind of dead center on the i6.
Okay.
But the PHEV, the back of the engine is a little bit farther.
We looked at it.
Farther forward because it's got a big electric motor behind it, but the front is still quite a bit farther back.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
The crank pulley was right in the neighborhood of the steering rack.
Yeah.
It's like
it was impressive.
Yeah.
Definitely on more behind than.
Yeah.
Next question. We usually do a technical review on a car when we get a car for a long-term test, and we pull the wheel off. And the first thing we check is if it's front steer or rear steer.
Right.
Why is this is really more for our audience.
Sure.
Why is front steer so much better? How does that help the dynamics?
I think there's a couple of small things, and they're all relatively small. You can make a plenty good rear steer car.
Sure.
But I think that sort of the main benefit is that the compliance steer is in the right direction. So when you put a side load on the tire, whatever part of that suspension has compliance, and so in that case it's usually the lower control arm bushing will compress a little bit, but the steering arm won't. It's ball joints inside and outside on the steering arm. So if it's front steer and you have a little bit of compliance on the control arm bushing, it tows the front out. So it takes out a little bit of steering and stabilizes the car.
Yep.
If you have a car that's rear steer and it's towing in under load, then the car's going to get unstable. You're going to turn in, and as your G builds up, it turns in even more, and you can't have that. So you end up having to build in kinematic tow out, right? So you have bump steer that you have to put in there to overcome the compliance steer, right?
Right.
And usually what we're trying to do is have the kind of the simplest vehicle dynamics possible, because at our core, what we're trying to do is make the car just feel intuitive and natural, right? And we did a bunch of sort of just human factors studying and understanding how people's balance works and what kind of movements the car needs to do to make the person subconsciously feel at ease, and that's if they can balance their body against those forces, that's going to do that. And really, really simple motions where you don't have, we'll start a corner and then have a yaw change, and like that. That throws people off, even if they don't consciously notice it. It just makes you a little uneasy. So we don't like to have all these passive steering things going on. We try to have as little toe change as possible to the suspension stroke, and the front steer lets us do that because the compliance steer will take care of stabilizing the car. We make the bushing pretty stiff, so there isn't a whole lot of compliance steer, but we don't have to fight that compliance steer with anything else.
And that's good. That's a great explanation. So which is why we don't see Miatas on videos going in the crowds, but we see Mustangs in it. Right. So okay. Okay. So. Y'all God bless Mazda because y'all came up with another acronym for us to all remember, and that is KPC.
Yes.
Kinematic. I hope I'm saying this right. Kinematic posture control.
You got it right.
Okay.
A lot
yes.
of people accidentally call it kinetic posture control.
Okay.
We almost named it that, but we didn't want to.
On camera, he will say it.
I'll say it wrong. We had to shoot an actual video later. Can you please explain to us what that is?
So I'll start back sort of historically why we came up with this. Again, trying to make the car behave naturally, we came up with a system on all our front drive cars called G-vectoring control. And what that's doing is it's automatically doing the kind of weight transfer that a good driver does, either left foot braking or lifting throttle when you turn in to load up the front tires so they respond more precisely. So G-vectoring control, when you turn the wheel, it cuts the engine power just a hair just to load the front tires consistently every time you turn. So you get really consistent steering response. And we wanted to put that on the MX-5 for obvious reasons, right? But it felt funny when we did it because that car has some anti-dive, anti-squat geometry in the rear suspension. So when you hit the brakes, it's pulling down on the back of the car to counteract some of the brake dive, makes the car more stable. So when you turn the wheel and cut the power, the back of the car squats down as it's trying to turn in, and that's the wrong direction.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we could never use that system in that car, and we tried a bunch of different ideas for how to sort of integrate the different parts of the car to make it corner more naturally. And what we finally came up with was this trick that uses the suspension kinematics and uses that anti-dive geometry to our advantage. So when you're in a corner, and it just looks at the difference in wheel speed between the inside and outside rear wheels. Right?
Okay.
So it's very directly related to just corner radius. And when in proportion to that speed difference, it'll start dragging the inside rear brake just a touch. And it's not, intuitively you're thinking, oh, it's like, it's gonna create a yaw moment and it's like a torque vectoring thing. It's not enough braking to actually measurably move the yaw moment of the car. Wow. You would need about 10 times the braking force that we're applying to do that. But this is enough that it starts pulling down on the inside corner of the car a little bit. And that is just helping keep the suspension in the middle of its stroke and making it behave more linearly from low G all the way up to the limit. And this pays off really well in a car like the Miata that you're driving at the limit. And it's a seemingly very subtle thing, but in that car when we started testing it, we were testing, we have multiple suspensions in the Miata. We have the base Hitachi dampers, and we have the Bilstein dampers, and automatics and manuals have different body stiffnesses. So when we really get into it, we feel the differences between all of these. And the difference of just having the system switched on was almost as big as the difference between our base dampers and our Bilstein dampers on the twisty road. So it was really effective. So we carried that system into this car as well, because the basic layout of the car and the suspension kinematics are very similar. And it's very effective at, we don't expect people to be hucking this thing around at the limit, but whether you do it on purpose or if it's accident avoidance, one way or the other, some people are going to get there.
Right.
And we still want the car to behave in a very natural and predictable way so the driver stays in control through the whole thing. Right. And it does a great job of keeping the back of the car settled at the limit and just making it just consistent and really making it drive much more like an enthusiast car than you would ever expect.
Right.
Like you don't want it to feel like an enthusiast car when you're driving down the freeway with your family, right?
Right. That part's not good. Yeah.
So, and I think our approach to vehicle dynamics works well for that. Like we don't make cars super stiff and super responsive. We make them really easy to control and linear from low G up to high G, so that you can have a perfectly comfortable normal driving, and then if you do push it harder, then it still supports that.
Okay, let's go drive the car. Let's. I'm convinced. Okay. Great answer. Thank you for that. That makes now understand KPC.
Yeah.
Maybe when someone asks me to explain it.
Yeah.
That's
There's
really
no the elevator pitch for that requires you to hit the emergency stop button.
Right. right. Fair enough.
Short answer, it helps turn in and weight transfer on those.
Yeah.
And keep it pointed.
Well, no, so that's the confusion. The GVC helps the weight transfer. KPC doesn't. KPC is helping the linearity of the cornering response by keeping the rear suspension in its sort of in the middle of its stroke.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Okay.
And it does suppress a little bit of body motion. It's a little bit flatter. You still feel body roll. We don't want the corner totally flat.
Right.
Like that's feedback, but it is a little bit flatter.
Yeah. Okay, and then, so on your video that we watched before this, you also talked about torque split, and so rear-wheel drive based.
Yeah.
And so we only send power to the front when we need to, not necessarily, although some, I guess, is at all times a little bit.
It sort of starts out about 90-10 split,
Okay.
and then it's adjusting on the fly all the time.
And that's kind of what I was asking. So what is the different torque split on the different modes? I guess that would make the biggest change when you change the modes? Or?
No, it really depends on how you're driving and what surface you're on.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's got 3 different algorithms going on all the time, trying to figure out the best balance. There's obviously a slip algorithm. If a tire slips, it'll react very quickly.
Right.
There's also one that's sort of trying to get ahead of the slip algorithm so we don't have a loss of control in our recovery. And it's trying to kind of predict where the grip is. And it's very easy to predict where the grip's going to be if all 4 tires are on the same surface. The most grip will be at the tire that has the most vertical load on it, right? So we just have an algorithm that calculates weight transfer. We know the center of gravity height of the car. We know where everything started out. And so we just use this weight transfer algorithm to send torque around to whatever corner has loaded the most. And then anytime you send more torque to the normally undriven wheels, so in this case when we're sending torque to the front, but on our front drive cars when we're sending torque to the back, you're coupling those axles together and making the car not really want to turn anymore.
Right.
Like you put a truck in 4-wheel drive
Right.
locked,
Yeah.
it just goes straight, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're running 10% front, that means we've got this light preload on those clutches connecting those wheels, and that creates a little bit of damping. When you turn the car, it's resisting a little bit from those clutches rubbing against each other. And so we have that third algorithm is looking at the driver's steering input.
Oh, okay.
And when the driver is turning, it will back off on whatever torque split it happens to have at that moment, some amount in proportion to that steering input to make the car turn in naturally and not have that resistance.
Okay.
And that last little bit, like initially when you're designing an all-wheel drive system, you think that yaw damping is the big negative side effect that comes from an all-wheel drive system. It turns out it's a really positive tuning tool for us because we can really fine-tune the steering response and the steering feedback, because you feel it in your hands. If you change that torque split, you can feel the buildup on the steering change. And that lets us really fine tune and make the steering buildup communicate to the driver how the car's going to turn.
Okay.
So it's one of the last things we tune in our process. We get down to the end, we start doing little tiny tweaks to the all-wheel drive algorithm just to get it dialed in so it just tells you exactly where it's going to go.
Very interesting. So,
Intuitive feedback.
yeah, and so here's where we're really heading with this and why we're asking this question, because I have a lot of dirt roads where I live, and what I'm trying to figure out is what's the best mode to be in to get it to go sideways a little bit, so the more power goes to the rear, and it does the opposite of probably what it's supposed to be doing, I guess. Because off-road mode, it seems like it's going to be a little bit more aggressive.
If you want to be sideways on a gravel road, you leave it in normal mode.
That's what we thought, okay.
Or sport mode.
Okay.
Right, because sport mode will just give you a more aggressive shift mapping, but the same kind of torque split.
Okay.
But one of the things, the off-road mode does a lot of different things, but if you're at higher speed, then it assumes you're on a gravel road, and it's trying to prevent that oversteer. We're not trying to make it understeer either.
No.
We're trying to make it track naturally, and so we dial up the front torque split to create more yaw damping, so that it turns in naturally and tracks naturally. And yeah, so if you want to be a hoonigan, switch it back into sport mode.
Okay, that's what we need to know. Thank you, very helpful.
But just so we know, its default is like 90-10, and it will adjust your driving style, right?
Yeah.
To like 50-50, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to locked, and then what locked means kind of depends on what surface you're on, but as far as, let's realistically just say
generally
50-50.
speaking, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, normal sport is the same torque management.
We're not changing the torque split in sport mode. We're basically changing the transmission behavior.
Yeah, right. Torque split's the same in normal sport. Yeah.
So the sport mode is really tuned for a twisty road.
Right.
Because when you
it holds the gear.
When you're accelerating and you suddenly let off the gas, in normal mode it should upshift, and in sport mode you're coming into a corner.
You need the engine braking.
Sport mode is basically tuned to try to have you be in the right gear at corner apex.
Right.
And it's trying to guess its way toward that.
Right. So when we go to Sonoma, we'll leave it in sport. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Just checking. On the way back, we'll do that. So Turbo and Turbo S, there's 2 different models. So the Turbo is more of the base, and then we have Turbo S, which makes 60 more horsepower. Is that right? I don't have the numbers. Is there a difference mechanically, or is it more just tuning, or is it
I don't actually know.
If not, I'm sorry.
Ask Ryan, if you're gonna talk to Ryan today, he might know.
Okay.
I know when we were doing our tuning, we could just take the Turbo S and turn it down. Like they just gave us a different algorithm. Like if you want to see what the regular one is, turn it down.
Like I got more than a $40 box.
Right.
For lemons. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and this might be more of a powertrain person too, but the 48 volt system. I don't know how much you can speak to that, but so that's across all the well, both turbo and turbo S are 48 volt.
Yeah, the 6-cylinder ones have
Right.
48 volt assist motor.
We know there's some efficiencies gained with that, with auto start stop and some other things. But are there other inherent advantages going from 12 volt to 48 volt? I mean,
Well, the 48 volt is just for the electric motor at the back of the engine.
That's it.
Right.
Okay.
The rest of the system is 12 volt.
Okay.
But a 12 volt motor wouldn't be able to spin up that much torque, right?
So that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and then like the motor in the PHEV is a 400 volt motor.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's all kind of in proportion to how much power do we need that system to generate.
Okay.
Probably a lot to the start-stop and that kind of stuff.
So that motor is helping with tip-in response. It's filling in before the boost comes up.
Okay.
Gives you really consistent throttle response. It's giving you torque fill on shifts.
Okay.
It helps the engine rev match a shift really quickly because you have all this torque from the motor to make it smooth those shifts out.
Okay.
And yeah, it'll stop-start the engine, which is not just going from stop to idle, but if you're on the freeway and you're coasting, it'll turn the engine off and let you coast. And then when you tip back into the throttle, it comes right back up to cruising RPM.
Right.
With that electric motor is like 113 foot-pounds or something like that at 0 RPM.
Right.
So enough to really spin the motor right up immediately. Right?
Okay. Very good. Oh, that helps a lot. Thank you. What is the and if I run out of time, let me know. But I got 5 minutes. Thank you. What is the difference in the chassis between turbo, maybe turbo S? Is there any different shock tuning between the two? Or are they the same shocks? Or
Yeah, the turbo and turbo S are the same. The PHEV is almost the same. The PHEV is trying to be the same, but the weight is a little bit different.
Right,
so we
weight
tune things differently to get back to the same place.
Okay.
But yeah, we're basically trying to do the same thing.
Okay. Let's see. We talked about drive modes. Okay, then let's get through the fun questions. We'll run out of time. Other than the CX-90, because you have to say the CX-90 is your favorite one, but so we're taking that off the table.
Right.
What's your favorite Mazda ever made? Anything in particular, or they don't have to keep. They don't have to still be making it. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are much cooler cars than this because they're more esoteric and all that.
Sure.
But ultimately, I'm a driver, and I like driving a car hard, and I like driving hard in the mountains and the twisty roads and the back roads and stuff. And so, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but really the current Indy Miata is the best. I own a lot of Miatas.
Yeah.
The current Indy is the best all-around daily driving sports car there is. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's good. I thought maybe you'd say the Mazda 5, but okay. Surprised by that.
I had a Mazda 5 manual transmission for a while with a Mazda Speed 3 rear sway bar in it, so I could do entrance ramp sideways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a fun car.
Oh man. Okay. Now I've got an idea for lemons. Okay. Okay. Runners have, I don't know anybody that's running, but runners they have a PR. I set a new PR, personal record.
Yeah.
And run it. What's your PR for on a track? Which one and what'd you do it in? What's your best?
I have an incredibly bad memory for numbers.
Okay.
So I like.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I just completely forget my lap times. As soon as they're not.
That's probably good. That's probably a good thing.
As soon as they're not next to somebody else's lap time, I don't remember the number. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, that's pretty much it. We don't. Brian, do you have anything else you wanted to add or bring up? So.
Yeah, I think we know. That's it.
Appreciate.
The Indy is the best, by the way, personally.
I mean, yeah, we've driven.
From here.
We've driven all of
they're
them
good,
too,
right?
and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's especially.
I don't mind. No question.
Yeah, which is good for me because then I get to drive it more.
We got to just take the seat out, just put some spray foam in there, sit in it, custom fit, good to go.
You take the seat out, it fits me great.
Right.
You just sit on the floor,
Yeah.
it's still there, everyone's good.
Yeah, perfect.
There you go. Dave, thank you.
right.
Appreciate it.
Great talking
Very
with you.
helpful. That was good. That was fun.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, pretty fun interview.
Oh yeah.
Man, did we have fun. We had to they had to extend our time a little bit because Dave, I think Dave was having fun too. We had fun.
We ran over, like they said, you got 5 left. We went about 5 past that.
He was very nice, very gracious, and it was just a joy to talk to him. We could have spent probably the next 5 hours there talking.
Oh, happily. Yeah,
fun stuff with him.
Yeah. Well, look, we just so you know, we had 2 mics on our person. We gave one to Craig and one to Dave. And Craig and I kind of used eye language to decide what we're asking next. It was awesome.
It was fun.
And a little background, if you're not a car nerd like we are in the same way that we are, this is the guy that's responsible for how I don't think the NA, but the B, C, and D Miatas, how they drive, in particular the D, is because of his work. And just putting it out there, the Indy Miata is the best driving car on sale today, period, overall. Now, I can't fit in it. I'll never own one. He barely fits in himself. The good news is I put the request in for a 10% more headroom bump on the Miata in the future, and he said basically no. But if that happens, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, so it was a lot of what I love about his insight is I think the funniest question and his funniest response was, which you could see the facial expressions he made when we asked him about, do you get annoyed when people don't understand driving dynamics?
Right.
He answered it perfectly. But you can tell this guy really cares about that. And man, 68 Lemons races? How cool is that?
That was really awesome. That was insightful in the budget side of it.
Yes.
Look, back in the day at Turbo Miata, it cost $500 just to run ECU management for it.
Yeah.
I have no idea how he's getting in a Lemons race. It's just great.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then he does such a good job. What I love is he does such a good job of explaining why something works the way it does.
Right.
Like,
better than we do, that's for sure.
When we kept messing it up, like, oh, you mean torque vector? And he's like, no.
No.
So
to me, in particular, look, I've misexplained KPC, kinematic posture control several times to myself.
Yes.
And since then on YouTube, I've had a real problem with projecting what it does, other than just saying it drives better.
Right.
He did a good job of saying why and all that good stuff. So,
yes.
Kudos to him.
Absolutely, and kudos to Mazda for doing simple yet effective driving dynamic things.
Absolutely, and look, a little tease to our next podcast. We drove the CX-90 almost immediately after filming that interview. Turns out all that stuff he's talking about is true. So,
yes, absolutely. That's the bottom line. And I think at one point in the interview we wanted to go just track the CX-90, and then after driving it, we definitely wanted to track it again. So
it was just breaks away from being track ready.
Exactly.
Yep.
So enough of that. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. A little bit different one, a special one. As we can get other guests at different events, we'll definitely do some more of these. But what they say don't meet your heroes, Brian, because you'll usually get disappointed.
Yep.
I was not disappointed.
Same.
So
glad we met him. I can't wait to meet him again.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.
Take care.
All right, now that Brian's done farting.
Can't use that.
Say something. No, say something.
Say something.
Gosh. All right. Okay. So Brian has farted like, I don't know, 10 minutes in a row, which is impressive. What he should have done is use the roadside toilet that I used, because that was nice and clean and the best roadside public park poop I've ever made in my life. I'm not going to put any of this in. I'll edit all this. So,
by the way, your PT photo was like, man, California's ceiling bathroom even looks better.
In a public bathroom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was blocked, by the way.
Mm-hmm. All right, ready?
Whenever you are.